Edie Stevens, and I'm glad to be here with you this evening. If you can't hear me, raise your hand. I'm going to try to, Okay, I'll try to go a little louder. Can you hear that? Yeah. We'll see if it lasts for an hour and a half.
We'll get the microphone fixed.
We're going to start out with corporate history and governance. The roots of BTCI. We're going to talk about how the property owners took control of Bent Tree. The headline news in January, February 1984 in the Echo was, ownership of amenities at Bent Tree goes to owners and class action decision. Final action taken and actual transfer to new association. At long last, ownership of the amenities at Bent Tree have been transferred to Bent Tree Community, Inc., the corporation established by the Bent Tree Property Owners Association to own and operate the facilities on behalf of the property owners at Bent Tree. They incorporated Bent Tree Community, Inc., which we're just going to shorten to BTCI for this, on November 30th, 1983, and then on January 5th, 1984, the property was conveyed from Liberty to the Property Owners Association, BTCI. What led to this point? We're going to go back to where Chris started, 1969. You had Spratland Associates as the developer and the marketer. The owner, Liberty Corporation with Liberty Properties under them, and Bent Tree Corporation under that. Bent Tree Corporation was incorporated on August 29, 1969. September 3rd, 1969, Spratland entered into an agreement, a management agreement, with Liberty. He was going to get under this agreement 50% of the cumulative net profits and losses of the project before the management fee and income taxes, but he was only limited to a $40,000 loss. Chris gave you the whole article last week that appeared in the Progress, Prestige Leisure Living Area planned in beautiful Pickens County mountains. That was in the Pickens Progress, and it was the first public announcement about the Bent Tree project. Even though Spratland and Liberty had already joined forces, it was only Spratland that was mentioned at that point. February 1970, in South Carolina, Atlanta Papers, Pickens Progress, the alliance was announced. It was basically a financial alliance the way it was presented. You can't hear?
There's noise coming through here.
Okay. I will do the best I can. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's some 1970 advertisements. You can see that it just shows Bent Tree as a development of Spratland Associates. Liberty's not even mentioned, even though they had joined forces. That color ad right there, it was in the Georgia versus Clemson game program in September 1970, and Georgia won 38-0. In 1971, the advertisement started out still with just Spratland shown. But then later in the year, the changes were shown as a development of Spratland Associates and Liberty Properties. Can you hear okay now? I don't think I can go any louder. I'm sorry. This is a zoomed-in version of one of those ads. Bent Tree's new 470-acre Coffee Cove is now open. I wanted to put that there to point out that Bent Tree was originally divided into 8 separate sections, and each had their own CC&Rs. You had Little Pine, Hendricks Mountain, Oglethorpe, Mole Mountain, Coffee Cove, Sharp Top, Chestnut Cove, and Denny Ridge. January 1972, not much further into the project, the relationship with Spratland was severed. Liberty bought out the contract. So he was out of the picture. Dean Spratland was gone. So he's gone. Now the owner, developer, marketer, and manager is all Bent Tree Corporation under Liberty. And we're about to get into a lot of corporations that start with Bent Tree, so one of the handouts will explain that. The 1972 advertisements, a development of Bent Tree Corporation. So now we're finally seeing that corporation name. 1974, the Bent Tree Property Owners Association was formed. It's an independent group, not affiliated with Bent Tree Corporation. 1975, we had a big real estate slump going on, so there were no advertisements, basically. And the only ones were for sale by owner, real estate agents not associated with Bent Tree Corporation, and there were a lot of lots being knocked off at the courthouse steps. January 1976, this is where things get interesting. Bent Tree Corporation enters into a contract with Club Corporation of America. Y'all may know them as Club Corp. I think they're called Invited now, and I'm just going to call them Club Corp because it's easier to say. Under the contract, Club Corp is to manage and operate all of Bent Tree's facilities. Club Corp establishes the entity Bent Tree Country Club as an entity to carry out the duties. It incorporated it. And Club Corp formed a board of governors. They did this at every club they owned. I'm trying, can you hear? So this is what it looked like in 1976. The owner-developer was Bent Tree Corporation. The operator was Bent Tree Country Club under Club Corp. You had the Board of Governors, which was the official advisory board to Club Corp, and the Bent Tree Property Owners Association, which was just an independent group still. A new marketing push began in the late 1976. They called it the New Bent Tree Growing Beautifully, and it was a Liberty Properties development. 1977, prior to Club Corp taking over the management of Bent Tree, property owners thought that it was mostly going to be property owners that had use of the facilities. Some property owners became concerned when, beginning in January 1977, the Echo started pushing Club Corp associate member clubs. The marketing blitz included references to Club Corp's reciprocal memberships that added to their concern. This was one of the things that listed, I think there were 55 clubs and growing at that point, so you could go play there if you were a Bent Tree property owner. Any of these other states, I think there was maybe one in Puerto Rico, Mexico, they could come to Bent Tree and not have to pay guest fees. A real marketing push geared up. This was an article in the Atlanta Constitution in March 1977. Liberty's research of the market here resulted in its decision to plan 74 condominiums at Bent Tree. That's the villas. Only a low-key effort to promote Bent Tree from 73 to 76. And now Pine Stream Marketing Corporation was hired by Liberty to return to active promotion. Brett Blevins, the vice president of Bent Tree Corporation, was quoted as saying, "If we meet our projections this year, we can make money." He acknowledged that Liberty had spent more than $8 million on land and development and had been losing money. May 77, the villas recorded their CC&Rs, or the CC&Rs were recorded by the declarant, which was Bent Tree Corporation. They were also subject to the Little Pine CC&Rs. So they had two sets of CC&Rs back then, the villas did. And actually back then, the Villas Homeowners Association was responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the exterior of all the villas. That has since gone away. And then the Villas Homeowners Association was established. Two classes of membership. One, the owners of the villas. Two, Bent Tree Corporation. The marketing blast continues. These are just kind of a montage of ads from 77. And they really started some kind of biting ads comparing themselves to Lake Arrowhead and Big Canoe. They were funny, but kind of biting. Which has the highest peaks at the lowest prices, that kind of stuff. They're really cool ads. Pine Stream Marketing Sales Report. Lot sales are up, 13 villas already sold. There's a referral program. If you're a property owner, you refer a friend and they come by at Bent Tree, you get $1,000. Furnished villa model was open. Moore and Groover was the developers of the villas, and they were 50% on the way towards 12 more units. There will be a price increase on the villas, and lot prices are going up on July 18th, they said. So things were picking back up in the real estate world. In fall 1977, the villas go up to $44,900. So we need to remember that we've got two advisory groups. The official advisory group, the Board of Governors, that reports to Club Corps or works with Club Corps, and the Property Owners Association. This was in the Pickens Progress in '78. Club Corps responsibilities include everything except sales. Bent-Tree Corporation has responsibility for all property sales. Having Liberty as the owner got Bent-Tree through a real estate picture that was not very bright during '74, '75, and '76. The improving economy is leading to anticipation that all remaining lots will be sold within 5 years. So they're planning to be out of lots by 1983. Dog Days of Summer in Bent-Tree. This is August 1978. Does anybody recognize that guy in the blue shirt? That's Vince Dooley. He's picking out his lot. The red shirt, that's Preisinger, the golf pro. And then white shirt, that's Jim Wilson with the marketing team, the sales guy, and he was one of original Dooley's dogs. He did buy a lot, and I believe his estate just recently, a couple of years ago, turned it over to CARES. He hung on to it all those years, paid those assessments all those years. By 1979, there was growing discontent among a group of property owners regarding the way Club Corps was managing Bent-Tree. Some property owners were against the Club Villas development because they were being built in an area that had been represented to be Greenbelt. Financial concerns were also growing. January 24th, 1980, Bent-Tree Corporation files a new HUD report for Bent-Tree. On page 24, Club Corporation of America has an option to acquire all of the amenities during the last year of the management contract, 1982. Bent-Tree property owners learned that the terms of the option meant that Club Corps could buy them for the sum of $20. But that wasn't even the property owner's main concern. The price really wasn't. The new property report also stated that property owners and their immediate families, guests of property owners, our guests, or those of the management company are all entitled to use the recreational facilities. This expanded the defined users was in conflict with the documents that had been given to them earlier. They were really believed it was just for residents and their guests and Bent-Tree representatives. A group called Concerned Bent-Tree Property Owners began researching the legality of such a transfer of the amenities. Many property owners claimed that the original sales pitch said the amenities would go to the property owners when the developer was done. Liberty denied that. Most of the property owners believed that it was only them and their guests that were going to get to use the facilities. Liberty denied that. Now, the property owners back then didn't have this, but I got it now. It's 1971 minutes of Bent-Tree Corporation's Operations Committee. You can see it says Property Owners Association. This was before the property owners had formed their association. A special study in this area should help us determine the guidelines for the Property Owners Association and the methods for transferring the facilities to this association. So they originally were talking about it. So I imagine they did tell the property owners that, but they were denying it by this time. March 1980, the concerned property owners started writing the other property owners and just telling them, we need to band together. You need to join the Property Owners Association. There were only 225 members at that point out of 2,250 property owners. So they really were trying to get a membership drive going. The Echo was published by Bent-Tree Country Club back then. So everything's hunky-dory from their side. We're just spring improvements at your club. Golf course maintenance pays off. Improvements continue at the Bent-Tree Club. I think they know something's brewing with the property owners, but they're just not paying much attention. In August, a man named Floyd Pruitt contacted Congressman Ed Jenkins, and he had previously contacted HUD, and HUD had come visited Bent Tree in July. This is how I know a lot of the lawsuit stuff. Mr. Pruitt was one of the original concerned Bent Tree property owners. In the 90s, he paid for, I think it was 7 full-page ads in the old newsprint Echo that he just put all those letters between him and the lawyer in there. It's very interesting. I've got them if anybody wants it. It's cool. This is in the Naples Daily News. In September 1980, Bent Tree development sellout anticipated in 80. Only 170 lots left. Record lot sales the year before. They tout that Bent Tree is a member of Club Corps. Now they've got over 100 associate clubs. They got a lot of Atlanta-based marketing, Florida marketing. December 1980, there's a letter from the Bent Tree Properties Association to the property owners that tells them what happened at the annual meeting. Question answer with Bent Tree Corporation, Club Corps, sale amenities. Quote, the exchange was spirited and informative with numerous points and counterpoints. Some property owners looking to pursue litigation. This is a letter from the Property Owners Association to the property owners now, kind of a rebuttal. They say, the concerned Bent Tree property owners are a small group dissatisfied with management here at Bent Tree. They are obsessed with alarming all property owners. Despite the concerned Chicken Little posturing, the sky is not falling. At the next annual meeting, October 1981, the board members turned the election. The lawyer with Hyatt and Rhodes who was engaged tells them that they have a pretty good case, the property owners. There's something called the doctrine of implied covenants. And because the salesman had made it seem like it was a private resort just for residents and their guests, and that the amenities would be turned over to the membership, that's an implied covenant, whether it's written or not. One possible concern they had was the wording in the CC&Rs. One section supported an implication that it was for residents or property owners and their guests, but another section stated, quote, the clearance shall have complete and sole control and authority to manage and operate the common properties and the right to determine the persons entitled to use the same. But that's where the doctrine of implied covenants came into play. They'd been told otherwise. Marketing material said otherwise. And this just basically says the 3 things the property owners are concerned with. They want a full financial disclosure, they want active control and management of amenities, and they want to maintain it as a private community for the exclusive use of property owners and their guests. Property owners then find out that Club Corps was selling to American Express Gold Card holders memberships to non-property owners. And they would even, like if a company had gold cards, all their employees could have separate memberships. So the property owners started to get kind of panicky. I like this, the concerned property owners, they've become official. They've put themselves around the logo. We must band together and through the board of directors of the Bent Tree Property Owners Association, assert our rights, insist upon our privacy, ensure that our assessments are being spent on our property, and that only the property owners and their guests will be permitted within the gates of the quiet world of Bent Tree. By this time, the property owner association membership had increased to 600. So they were getting some interest in, I think, how hard that would be back then. There was no internet. There was long distance phone. There were not good phone service up here. So it's pretty impressive that they were getting the word out. Here's where they decided to kick it into high gear. This is a letter from the Property Owners Association to property owners. Members are now at 1,200. By a letter of June 18, 1982, the Property Owners Association made demand on Bent Tree Country Club that it enforce the covenant that Bent Tree is to be operated for the exclusive use of Bent Tree property owners and their guests. No written response was received to this demand. Therefore, on June 30th, 1982, a lawsuit was filed against Bent Tree, owner of the common properties. Lawsuit was based on the implied covenants. Brett Blevin had basically told them, Blevins, that Liberty was going to be pulling out, leaving the project, and they just had a few, they were going to sell their remaining lots. Bill Tanner, B.E. Tanner, actually bought most of them right before they pulled out on July 20th, 1982. He had been with, Bent Tree Corporation since the beginning, property owner. He wound up playing a role in Bent Tree for years and years after.
Who was financing the lawsuit?
Property Owners Association.
And that was, so that is, the people lived here were financing?
The people lived here and joined the Property Owners Association. They did send out solicitations for, can you send us $10? Can you send us $25?
But they were fighting this big corporation.
Yes, and they were,
But they didn't all live here.
correct, very few of them lived here.
A lot of part-time owners, but they didn't want other people.
They didn't want it to change, okay.
Yeah, and back then there weren't even that many houses. There were a few hundred houses, I think.
This is sort of in the 1980s and
So it's amazing how they got their wheels going.
No, I think it is. I think.
And if anybody wants any of the background information, because it's fascinating to sit and read some of the letters, it gives you the whole story, and this is just parts of it. I'll be glad to share. Other people shared with me, that's how I have it. So, in November of '82, the board, Property Owners Board unanimously rejected a proposal that Club Corps had offered them, the new Bent Tree proposal. They unanimously approved pursuit of the lawsuit. So now it's gone from that small group of concerned property owners. There were 6 individuals, and the Property Owners Association is joining. So it's 6 people plus the association. Of course, they were members of the association by that time. That's the consent form they sent out trying to drum up money to help join and also join the Property Owners Association. But Bent Tree Country Club's just going along like nothing's happening. This is a letter from Bent Tree Country Club to the property owners describing the new Bent Tree, their idea. Club Corps is going to get the amenities. This is what's going to happen. And they're hyping it. And I'm not saying which thing was right, which model was right, but it's interesting to see how they just totally ignored it, at least publicly. And even in December 1982, the Echo was all about the new Bent Tree, Club Corps' Bent Tree. There were whole 2 pages of letters from property owners that supported Club Corps. They signed it, they had a petition, they signed it. So you really had factions, but both sides thought they were, doing what was in the right interest of Bent Tree. But Judge Daniel, Superior Court of Fulton County, said nope to the new Bent Tree. There's a preliminary injunction until the course could be tried. So that halted the sale, temporarily at least.
When Club Corps was running things this time, did we have the golf course, the courts, the pools, the stables?
Yes, everything.
Everything was.
Everything.
They were running everything.
Yep, they ran everything. Yep, just the only thing Bent Tree Corporation did at that point was the sales, the property sales. And so the Property Owners Association's excited. They got a major victory with that temporary injunction. And they're asking people to meet them at Perimeter Mall. There's your map of where to meet them for a meeting. They had several hundred people there, if I recall. So later in 1983, August and September, you can see the Echo's still published by the Bent Tree Country Club. The only time anything legal was ever mentioned, it was basically just a social newsletter, was this one edition. There was just some notes about it from the Board of Governors minutes. Okay, our Property Owners Association sends out a settlement agreement that they've worked out with Club Corps by October 1983. And they're saying, don't be confused. This mailing's from the Property Owners Association. Everything's so confusing with Bentry Corporation, Bentry Country Club. But both parties agree by this point that the settlement must be approved by the Superior Court of Fulton County through a class action process. First, it was just going to be the 6 individuals in the POA, but it needed to go class action. And believe me, they got it done in no time. November 1983, settlement reached between Bentry Corporation and the Property Owners Association. You can see the echoes now by Bentry Community Inc. for the first time. Questions in that same echo? Will Bentry be open to persons who are not property owners? No. Bentry will be accessible only to property owners and their guests. Will property owners run and manage Bentry? A manager will be hired to run and manage Bentry. Thank goodness. And that's where we started. And another quote from there is, well, that struggle is behind us, but another lies immediately ahead to get Bentry back to where it should be and go on to significant improvements. Check the time here. Yeah, we're good. According to attorney Wayne Hyatt of Hyatt and Rhodes, at the time of the transfer of the Bentry property from Liberty to the Property Owners Association, one of the Liberty lawyers looked him in the eye and said, they'll never make it more than 6 months, and they'll be asking us to take it back. What happened next? I just want to say, this is important. Some of the people who served on the Board of Governors, the Property Owners Association Board, some served on both at one time or other, the restated CC&R committee, they still own property and or live here in Bentry. So no matter what side of the lawsuit they were on, they were passionate about the community. I know several people that were actually big players in this. The settlement puts 3 members of the former Board of Governors onto the BTPOA board. So remember, we've got BTCI, which is owning the properties now, but it's still a property. BTPOA is the board and doing everything else. Oh, and directors take a stand on timeshares. That was the big news. April 1984, the first paid general manager is hired, Paul Boring. I'm sure a lot of you either knew him or have heard that name. And also, the Property Owners Association Board established Bentry Community Realty, Inc. Over 8 years, different realty business models they tried, and then it was shut down at one point. The sales office was the Rondette, as Chris had mentioned, on Little Pine. 711 was the lot number. April 1984, the article from the board president, Alan Wright. He was the president of the board from 81 to 84. He was also the Wright in the lawsuit, Wright et al. Versus Bentry Corporation. But then, the May echo, board planning memorial for Alan Wright. Really sad, he just died suddenly. And the quote, Alan never stopped working for the betterment of Bentry even after the litigation ended. Just a few other headlines from that year. Study looks to future water development plans. Boring cites progress made in Bentry paving program. Homeowners sign up for fire hydrants. Y'all seen those little skinny fire hydrants on some of the roads? You got to pay like $500 up to $550 to have one near your house. There were no fire hydrants before that. Liberty Corporation may be taken back to court. Problems with the water system. They didn't honor everything in the deal. Auction buyers add new owners to Bentry. Those lots Bill Tanner bought from Bentry Corporation, he sold them at auction. 110 lots. And then the next headline, Tanner elected board president. Tanner, a real estate broker who has been associated with Bentry since the beginning, has been elected president of the Property Owners Association Board. 1985, 84 year ends in the black, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. These people just scrapped and they took over this thing and somehow made it. They got a settlement from Atlanta Baptist Assembly, now called Young Life, for silt damages of the lake. Criteria, protect our quiet world. Water system recognized. They were given the award for the cleanest water in the state for a water plant under 1 million gallons a day. Membership approves bylaws unanimously. That made it to where you only got one vote per, no matter how many lots you owned. And there was also a bylaws change that would allow a future merger of the Property Owners Association with BTCI. Oh, the reason why they had to set up BTCI, I don't think I said this. The bylaws, the original Articles of Incorporation of the Owners Association said they couldn't own property until 1990. So they couldn't take the property without setting up BTCI. Excuse me. And also proposed CC&R amendments were in the headlines. Why the proposed CC&R amendments? To consolidate all those 8 sections of the neighborhood under one banner. Provide for extension and renewal of the CC&Rs. They were set to expire in 1990. And enact an effective timeshare prohibition. There were 2 existing timeshares that were in existence when the amendment did pass. They were grandfathered in, and those just finally sold within the last few years, so no more timeshares. 1986, second lawsuit settled. It started out to be just about the water system. Turned out to be about much more. Turned out Liberty had held on to some properties that were within the gate outline of Bent Tree, but had not been subjected to the CC&Rs. And it was the rest of the villas area. It was the land on the lake where Sally Doss is, and land between 2 fairways on the back 9, which I believe is where the villa's wastewater spray field is. Excuse me. Headlines from '86, and we're getting on through here. Finest mountain course in Georgia. Since the only way to become a member is to buy property, the resale program will benefit from an improvement in our golf operation. And then they had to send out all these packets for the CC&R change. Remember, they needed to make sure these things didn't expire. It was very critical. Had to go to all 8 neighborhoods, sections, and all those sections had to have the correct number of votes to come under one umbrella.
Why were Coffee Cove and Long Mountain excluded
No, they were on there.
on that last slide? Excluded.
Oh, they just, I'm sorry, that was a misleading thing. Everybody except those 2 sections have been mailed out. They were trying hard to mail out. They gave monthly updates. This was the last one. They did get mailed out. In 1986, the Property Owners Association merger with BTCI was approved at the annual meeting, and BTCI now became a corporation with members. It's a membership corporation now. The Villas Homeowner Association proposes to transfer all their common property to BTCI because they were in charge of their own common property around the villas. That was approved by the board. That transfer was completed in '87. And this is it. You did it. This is they've got enough from each section to come under one, to restate the CC&Rs, and now just under one banner. This is the type of card they would send out. You'd have to fill it out. And those are actually all, how many does it say? There's a lot of them. Each one is recorded in Pickens County. The physical card is in their records. That one right there is Brett Blevin's card, the vice president of Bent Tree Corporation. He owned a villa, so he signed. In '88, they were still pursuing cable TV. The Villa Association and the BTCI merger was approved at an annual meeting, so now the villas didn't have their own homeowners association, they were all together. That was effective October 9th, 1988. Transition complete. And just want to touch on the realty company. They closed down, like I said, and it just sat dormant for years. The 2018 board finally decided to let that corporation administratively dissolve, but then they voted to set up a new subsidiary with a different name, Bent Tree Community Properties, Inc., Bent Tree Realty. In the interim, it was just kind of a group of local real estate agents who marketed Bent Tree. Admin worked with them. The real estate companies produced the pamphlets, and admin would pass them out. And I thought I'd just throw in the logos. That's IBM right there showing how their computers work in the 70s to do the marketing ad. You can see the old logo. This logo was trademarked in 2017, the one that's used most now. And in 2020, Lee Wilson, I don't know if any of y'all knew him. Yes. Lovely. He was so passionate about the classic logo that we call, he got Bentrey's permission to let him pay for all the legal work to have it trademarked. So it is trademarked again, so we can still use it. Nobody else can take it. And then Bentrey Foundation, I just wanted to say, they're not affiliated with BTCI, but we all know how much they do with their community enhancement. They're a 501c3. You can make donations to their projects, and they've done a lot for Bentrey. The Foley project on the golf course, one of the big ones recently. And that's it. It's break time. But the second part's shorter. What are we? BTCI is self-governed, but not a government. And a lot of this is from the attorney's office several years ago. A lot of it's from Mary Lou, and I threw in a little bit of stuff. There are 3 types of covenant communities. Covenants only, no association. Voluntary associations, mandatory associations. Is it still on? Yeah. And Bentrey is a unique hybrid. In Georgia, planned communities typically fall into one of 3 categories: condominiums, HOAs, homeowner associations that are subject to the Property Owners Association Act, the POAA. That act was not around when BTCI was set up. We are not subject to it. Bentrey is a common law HOA, not subject to the POAA. BTCI was created as a Georgia nonprofit corporation. HOAs in Georgia are almost always created as nonprofit corporations, but it's not required. We are governed by the Georgia Nonprofit Corporation Code. BTCI has tax-exempt status under 501c4. That's effective November 1st, 2013. That has a lot of advantages. One interesting thing, if the villas still had their association where they were, they kept up the maintenance of everybody's outside, we couldn't qualify for that. You cannot do maintenance of anybody's building, private building, be exempt under that. Hierarchy of governing laws. Federal laws are paramount, then the state laws, then local ordinances. Federal laws are such things as Fair Housing Act, Federal Communications Act, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, Americans with Disabilities Act, and the various employment laws. Georgia laws that apply to associations, Nonprofit Corporation Code, then the Condominium Act, which we're not worried with here, and the Georgia Property Owners Association Act, which we're not part of. Real property laws relating to duration of covenants and real property. Most real estate law in Georgia is common law, case law. Local ordinances can have big impacts on communities. Watering bans, pet restrictions, sign ordinances, zoning restrictions, building codes, fire codes, noise ordinances. You may notice in our rules and regs, I think the pet policy still says, we're not going to repeat what's in the county policy, but you're subject to it. The hierarchy of our governing documents. The Georgia Nonprofit Corporation Code, then the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, which we call the CC&Rs, BTCI bylaws, and the Articles of Incorporation, and the rules and regulations. The CC&Rs, filed in the Pickens County land records, binding on all lot owners. The restrictive covenants that regulate the use of land. They're also affirmative covenants that require certain actions. Talks about utility easements. Article 5 is the architectural maintenance and use restrictions. If you've ever read that, it's a long section. Gives Bentrey the right to impose fines. Amendments to the CC&Rs require the approval of the declarant, BTCI, and 2/3 of votes cast by lot owners. We need a 33% quorum of eligible lots. As I said, BTCI is the declarant. On the first page, common properties and other definitions are given. That has a lot of good information. The designated family unit causes some confusion in here, I've noticed. It really just means that each lot owner has the automatic privilege to designate one family unit to use and enjoy the common properties. Sometimes you might have, let's say, two families going on a house together. They got to pick which one gets to have the, the deal, and the other has to pay guest rates. You got your different assessments: the annual general assessment, capital improvement assessment, capital maintenance and replacement assessment, special assessments, capital contribution fee, that's a new one, annual general user fee, specific user fees, new home construction fee, right to access fee. That's the right to access the water when you build a house. The original recorded plats from the 70s are also an important part of the CC&Rs. The preambles, the CC&Rs, which are recorded in land records but don't show up in our copies that we have, refer to the recorded plats. You can see this is Tamarack Point Road. There's a park at the end of it. You can't sell, some people have wanted to buy that. You can't sell it as a lot. The green belt goes all the way around the lake. Over there we've got the golf course, and it even said reserved for maintenance building. That's where they wound up building the golf course maintenance shed. So those original plats still have to be followed. It's kind of part of the contract between the lot owners, BTCI, with the CC&Rs. Conflict of laws is talked about. You got to do all the government building codes, things like that. If there's any conflict, the more restrictive provision shall apply. The Articles of Incorporation. They're required by state statute to create a corporation. Establishes the basic purposes and powers of the corporation. Filed annually with Georgia Secretary of State. When I've said this before, but when the Property Owners Association merged with BTCI, BTCI became a membership corporation. Had no members before, now it's membership with one class of members. The bylaws. They've historically been recorded in the Pickens County land records. I'm not sure the last amendment has yet. Establishes the governing structure and procedural operation of the association, corporation. Membership's optional. Only those who submit to membership in BTCI can vote in board elections or vote to amend the bylaws. 1 vote per member. They can be amended by a majority vote of BTCI members.
Can you explain to them about the membership versus lot ownership?
Yes, I think. Every lot owner, if you own a lot, you get to vote for amendments to the CC&Rs. But for the bylaws, you actually have to fill out a membership form. You have to, going where you want to go, you have to proactively do your membership. There's actually a Georgia code that says you can't be forced to be a member of a nonprofit corporation. So since it's not part of our declaration that you're automatically a member, you opt in. Did that answer it?
Yeah, at administration.
Oh, yeah, at administration. You go there. And all our documents and everything are on the website. And if you can't find them, just ask Deborah or Therese. They'll steer you in the right direction. And they're searchable. Like if you go to CC&Rs and you just want to find tree, like you want to know something about what can I cut, you can put in tree and it'll take you there. You don't have to go through all those pages. Same with the rules and regs and the bylaws. Because people think that Mary Lou and I know these things. I know how to search for a word in a document. Like I said, they're usually recorded. This, our current bylaws was first recorded in 1994. There have been those amendments. The last amendments aren't on there yet. But I want to see if y'all notice, this was in 1994 the letter to the property owners, Bentry members, about the bylaws they were trying to pass, and it's signed by George Nowak. Do y'all remember that name? He's our association attorney. He still is today. And actually, he came on to Hyatt Rhodes, the law firm in that lawsuit we talked about. He was there in 1986, so he was there for the second lawsuit. He knows Bentry in and out, pretty much.
Can I just put in a point right now? Because you have to be a board member, you have to be a member of BTCI to vote in the board elections that are upcoming.
Correct, correct.
Okay, so if you haven't already signed up for that, you have to go and fill out the forms so you can vote. Thank you.
The board is comprised of 9 members serving staggered 3-year terms. Board members are elected by the BTCI membership. Board members can be removed by the BTCI membership. Officers are elected by the board members, president, vice president, secretary, treasury. Officers can be removed by vote of the board, but removed from office only. The board can't say you're off the board. Duties of officers and directors, standard of care. Before taking action, the board must make sure it has the authority to act. They have a fiduciary duty, the good business judgment rule, be informed, register dissents, know your documents, act when required, show up at meetings. Now, this is going to be abbreviated because I understand the process is changing some this year, but the main part won't. The nominee qualifications. If you want to run for the board, you got to be a BTCI member in good standing 150 days prior to the annual meeting. You must have demonstrated a willingness and desire to serve. Can't be an employee of BTCI. Submit a notice of intent to run. 2 letters of recommendation from other members in good standing. Resume and photo for the ECHO. Sign the board code of ethics. And the annual meeting is the second Sunday of October. The members of the election committee can solicit candidates. But now this whole process has changed, so I don't think I need to go through this. I think they're going to do it electronically this year. Am I correct? Okay. Artie says yes.
Although everything on that slide is correct,
Thank you.
because we have been putting out notices.
Oh, good. You're on the committee.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank
We've been
you.
putting this in the ECHO and trying to tell people that the elections are coming up. We have 3 seats that are open, and we have been trying to recruit members. We have all of this is still accurate. The only thing different this year is going to be that we are going to have electronic voting. We have a company that was worked on the last CC&Rs that we voted on. It worked very well. We're going to have it this year for our voting, and we'll be sending out information about how that's all going to work. But right now, we've been sending out this information about trying to recruit people to apply, run for the board.
Thank you. Thank you. And you will still need to validate the nominee qualifications. Because let's say that a husband and wife there's a husband and wife. Let's say the property might only be in the wife's name. The husband cannot be a BTCI member and run for the board. She's going to have to put him on as a 1% member on the deed, recorded deed. In August, I think y'all will still be doing this, or else Votegrity will, but
Yeah, this is what's changing
Okay.
here. And we'll have all that information available to everybody. We're going to try and have it in the ECHO.
good. Read your next
Publish
echo.
it. It'll be coming.
Okay.
It'll probably be in the July ECHO in
Okay.
August. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is now obsolete. Let me see what all's obsolete there. Yeah, you won't be meeting Sunday morning to count the ballots anymore. Back? What?
Annual meeting is
Oh,
still.
yeah.
Yes.
Annual meeting is still the second Sunday in October. The election supervisor will announce the results.
And also in August, we'll be having a meeting to meet the candidates.
So that is still
Yeah.
happening. Good. There's some committees mandated by the bylaws. The Nomination Election Committee. It's made up of representatives of all the active standing committees. The Architectural Committee, quote, "The board shall establish an architectural committee which will administer such architectural standards as approved by the board of directors."
If you have 3 openings for the board and you don't have 3 people submit, how are the spots filled?
I believe the board will get to appoint come January.
It's basically a game of duck, duck, goose.
To my knowledge, that has never happened.
Yeah.
Do you remember it ever happening to where you didn't have 3 candidates? Do you remember that ever happening?
Not where we didn't have 3, but we just recently had one where we only had 3.
Right,
Yeah.
that's happened quite a lot, yeah, yeah. So get your applications in. Standing committees serve at the pleasure of the board. They're typically formed to address a particular need. These are the current ones, I believe. Land Analysis and Development Committee, Golf and Greens, Courts, Stables, Communications, and Activities. The AC in each standing committee has a board liaison. Golf and Greens is the only committee where the chairperson is a board member. The authority for the Architectural Committee is spelled out in the CC&Rs. The powers are spelled out in the CC&Rs. If you submit plans to build a new house and the AC denies that, your right of appeal is to the Board of Directors. You got 45 days to appeal it, and the board has the final authority. Duties of a general manager. This is real brief because I know you got a whole session coming up.
I think I just figure out what I'm supposed to do.
Well, this is all I'm telling you. You implement decisions of the Board of Directors, administer services, programs, and operations of the association within the policies and guidelines set by the board, meet all contractual obligations, assist the board in obtaining training and experience they need to operate the association facilities. That last line is from when the lawyer did this presentation. But it is helpful. The board sometimes has to meet in executive session where you're not members, BTCI members can't go watch and observe. They're limited to the things they can discuss in executive session. They can only discuss and vote upon personnel matters. One time we had a board member who thought it was personal matters and personnel. Litigation in which the corporation is or may become involved, and orders of business of a similar nature. Board can also do actions without a meeting. They don't have to sit at the meeting to pass something. If they need a budget amendment right away, they can easily do it with an action without a meeting. It's basically done by email now. Secretary's responsibility to make sure every board member is contacted. And then if it passes by email, all the board members still have to sign off on it. Are discussions among board members outside a meeting and without all board members present okay? Yes, as long as there's no vote, not even a straw vote. Board meetings. Sunshine laws only apply to government bodies, but the BTCI bylaws call for open board meetings, so BTCI members may attend. But they can't participate in the discussion unless invited to by the board. The board meetings are run by Robert's Rules of Orders, with some modifications for small boards. Again, annual meetings, second Sunday in October. That is a meeting of the BTCI members. That's not a board meeting. But you do have reports of the officers, directors, and committees, and the election of the new directors. Books and records, the bylaws list what members can ask for. Rules and regs, often used to expand or clarify use restrictions in the CC&Rs, can't be inconsistent with the CC&Rs. Reasonable rules regarding common property and lots. They can be amended by the board of directors only. Property owners or BTCI members don't have to weigh in, or don't have to vote. And they get that authority from the CC&Rs to set the rules and regs. There's also the AC handbooks. They used to actually be part of the rules and regs, but now they're separate. New construction handbook and the standards policies. Those are also amended by the board of directors, usually because the AC, comes up with a proposal and asks them to do. I've got a summary of amendments that have been done, but I don't know, I've got a printout. I don't know that y'all want me to really go through all this. But there's some interesting ones. And that's it.
Which ones are interesting?
Depends on what you want done.
Unfortunately, a nerd like me thinks they're all interesting. Well, a lot of people are confused with the annual general user fee. They think it was voted on in 2015. It wasn't. The 2015 amendment vote had absolutely nothing to do with the annual general user fee. The town hall meetings made it sound like it would, but it wasn't. That wording's actually been in there since 1989, so I think that's interesting. It's a common misconception, but,
We just got active with it.
pardon?
The board just became active with it, that's all.
Yeah, made it mandatory for the first time. It had actually been used until, what year was that? When 2007, I think.
Yeah.
They made it to 0. It used to be used like if you wanted to buy a golf membership or buy a courts tennis membership, you had to first pay a user fee. And some of the old lot combination contracts required the payment of a user fee. There were all sorts of different ones. But that's about it. But I do have a handout with those if anybody wants it. And that's the end. We've got a few minutes, so I know it was you're probably ready to go to sleep after that, but if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Especially since we have somebody that's on the board election.
I think Ralph had a question.
Connecting with it.
Is everything we read on social media true?
I have never had a Facebook account, and right now I've muted so many people on Nextdoor that I don't see very much, so I don't know. I don't know what's said there anymore. Yes?
You said in 1985 it was in the black. There was a profit being made.
Well, actually, 1984, in 1985 they said 84 ended in the black.
And part of that was due to something to do with, I couldn't hear, but something about the Georgia Baptist and the lake.
Oh, well, they did get a settlement. The Atlanta Baptist Assembly, silt came down to Lake Tamarack, so there was a little bit of a legal action there, and they settled for, I think it was $13,500.
So the water flows from Georgia Baptist down?
Yes, actually in 2013, I know some of y'all were here for the two 500-year floods that happened in 10 days that washed out Tamarack, and I should have put pictures of that. That would have made you away. I've got great pictures of that. But what happened was a dam up at Young Life burst, and it just came, massive water came, took out Tamarack, and just Beaver Run was just decimated. It was crazy. You should see the before and after pictures. I've got them.
Our fantastic staff immediately, because there was a huge gap in that road and the water system had been blown away, they immediately dropped some trees from one end to the other and ran water lines across those trees. Wow. So water was not disrupted for any length of time. Wow. But we waited a long time to get the road back.
Yeah.
If I had a Facebook account, I'd put the pictures there, but I don't. But seriously, if any of y'all, I've got some pretty amazing pictures from before and after.
Yeah.
I'll be glad to share them with anybody. But oh, and I guess we've always ended not in the red, but in 2013, I think was the closest we ever came. We were, because of after the floods, they were actually going to end like 30,000 in the red, I believe. And this brings another story, but Bent Tree Partners bought Mountain Breeze lots where Mountain Breeze and had to pay back some assessments. So it worked at the time, but later issues.
Well, and I think because of some of those catastrophes, that there was a CC&R change that came later that allows the board to assess $100 per lot, I think it is, isn't it? But to assess just that one time assessment, but it has to be after the expenses go above $40,000.
Above $40,000, it's 10% of your general assessment, and it's for a catastrophe, capital maintenance and repair catastrophe. And when they passed it, the general assessment was very low, so that 10% wasn't much. The next year they raised they had an amendment that raised the general assessment. But so you have your special assessments for that. But at the same time, they also added another special assessment provision to where if there's a capital improvement the community wants, like a fitness center or something, you can go out to I believe it's the property owners, and if they approve that special assessment for an improvement, it's a go.
Remember, she's saying the board's not making these without your vote.
That particular one.
Because these become changes to the CC&Rs, and the board cannot make changes that affect that.
But that's actually in play already, that
Yeah.
other capital improvement special assessment,
Yes.
as long as it goes out for that, whatever you want to do, have a well thought out project, you can put it out to the membership, to the property owners. Anything? Yes?
Have the sections of the different neighborhoods changed over the years at all?
No.
Okay.
No.
And that's how our lot,
Coffee Cove,
It's all this, it's all part of those original plats. I mean, they have hundreds of
my
plats.
question is, originally, why
Yeah.
were they in these 8 different sections?
A lot of communities developed that way, I believe, and they started just by platting some lots. They didn't even have them.
What was the goal to have HOAs for each lot, each?
We don't know what Liberty's goal was because they're saying they never had a plan for any HOA, but their minutes say otherwise. But there were, like I say, 8 separate declarations, and as the lots were divided and sold, those lots, I mean, it may have been 10 lots at a time were then subjected to that section's CC&Rs. You would not believe the number of property records related to all that. Is crazy, absolutely crazy. Yes?
Are the plats on the website, the original plats?
You can get them through the Clerk of Court's website or go down to the courthouse. You have to have a subscription now for the Clerk of Court's website, but once you have that subscription, you can look for free. You have to, if you download it, 50 cents a page.
The subscription's easier than learning how to look.
Subscription's great.
Like way easier, right, than looking
Yeah.
through the plat.
But it's still hard to find because a lot of the stuff isn't referenced, file indexed correctly on there. So a few years ago when I was looking up something, I sat while I was watching TV and literally clicked through decades of land records, and all of a sudden I was almost not paying attention, like, oh my gosh, there it is. You just have to sometimes randomly click. But your deed probably references one of those original plats. And then so you know what book and page to look at. If you're interested, I can pull it up for you. Anything else?
What is the minimum square footage requirement? Right now?
It's different for the 3. I'd have to get out my searchable thing and look. There's a minimum 1,000 square feet, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, on the main living floor. And then 2,000 total. The main livings for the
50 on the main floor with 2,000 total.
Yeah, and the golf course lots, the lake lots, and then the other lots still vary, don't they? I'd have to look that up, but they did start out some cabins just 900. There's 1 bedroom, 1 bath cabins here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of grandfathers.
They actually, I think they raised them twice. I think Bentry Corporation might have raised them at some point, even before the property owners took over.
Where was Vince Dooley's lot?
Vince Dooley's lot, if anybody knows Don and Pat Smith, it was kind of close to that. I can show you.
What street?
Southview, near Southview and Coach Whip. I don't remember exactly which one, but
He never built.
just if you go to, no, it was just for him an amenity lot. Back then, a lot of the lots were sold just for amenity access. They knew they were not buildable. I know people here who have owned a lot for decades. They don't even know where it is. They didn't care. They just bought it for the membership. So
Really?
it's interesting.
Southview or on the, she said Southview.
You can actually go to Q Public if you've ever looked at that. It's a tax assessor's website. I think it's qpublic.net. And then I think if you search for property owner cares, it'll show up. Mm-hmm. And it's probably about time. Oh.
Any other questions? Don't forget, please, to leave me your.
Next week, we're going to do all things financial, and you have an assignment. I want you to think of questions. What is it that you want to know about the financial status of BTCI? I've got an agenda I'm going to follow, but I would like the agenda to be driven by you guys. Let's have an interaction session, ask questions, interrupt me if I say something you don't understand, but bring some questions with me, and let's have fun.